What's up, y'all? It's your host, Ikeshku. Y'all know me as Sensei Eka. I say thank you for clicking on this video. Make sure you leave a like, a comment, subscribe. We are done with round one of the NBA playoffs, so I decided, hey, I might as well come here and give y'all a quick summary, quick review, some of the things I've noticed, some of the things that I'm seeing, because you know we love basketball on this channel. So let's start this off with the Timberwolves advance. And when I tell you, we as Timberwolves fans, we needed this. This has been a magnum opus of a way to go through a season. I have not felt such joy as having us clinch Game 6, having us wrap all this nonsense with the big Joker up. Because I've been saying this for the past 2-3 years. We have had that man's number. Everybody in the league is scared of him but us. And I love the fact that we're able to highlight all the defensive woes that team truly has deep inside their hearts. Because I remember way back when they used to put belt to butt to the Lakers every single year. There was nothing Anthony Davis could do. But there's something Rudy Gobert can. The main theme of the NBA playoffs this year will be that matchups will be the most important aspect of the playoffs. And it will all boil down to matchups. Because even as the Minnesota Timberwolves were undermanned and undersized at some parts of the games, you would still watch how we were designed to destroy this squad. And when you start looking at other rosters, actually, when you start looking at the other possibilities of rosters playing against the Nuggets, even with the teams that are ranked higher than we were that had higher seeding, they would get spanked by the Nuggets because it's a thing of, because not only do we have the personnel to beat the Nuggets, we have the personalities to be able to beat the Nuggets. That's the number one thing that I'm taking away from it. Because watching the way that our guys were hounding this Nugget squad, you know what, let's talk about Jaden McDaniels. That guy. Jaden, can I give you all our money? I'm willing to max Jaden McDaniels because of, it feels as if basketball has lost one of the main nerves when it comes to playing defense, right? Because with a lot of players that are defensive specialists, they tend to be very aggressive and or trying to get under your skin. But that's why I love Jaden McDaniels, because he is not doing too much. And he's actively just setting down the stage to let everybody know, just so you know, I can lock anybody in the league. Whoever you want to put up against me, I swear I'm going to lock them down. And it's one thing to have pride in it, but it's this nonchalant energy that comes from, you know that you have a job and you know that you are the sole proprietor of what it takes to do said job. You're the only person on our roster that can do that job. That you say, you know what? I'm going to set the standard for such defensive prowess that everybody will have to meet me or get left behind. And everybody on the Minnesota Timberwolves roster is consistently on demon time in a way that is so beautiful to watch, especially when they're on my team. Because of, you remember back in AAU when you'd play against this team at like 8 a.m. in the morning, they are pressing you 45 minutes straight from hash to hash. They do not care because they take pride in it. It's kind of like having a team of Pat Beverleys, but guess what? They're on your team. So all the hatred that you have for a player like that is saying, hey, it's okay as long as you're on my squad. Kind of like having Draymond Green. As long as you are on my team, I love the nonsense you pull. When you're not on my team, hey, just go ahead and you are hacking, you are hurting people, move around. But I will say this. What the Nuggets did well, actually, I can't even say what they did well, because they were supposed to capitalize on the fact that the Timberwolves were so obscenely injured and they still weren't able to win against us because of, actually, there's a long-standing history between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. And I found it very interesting where after game one, Jaden McDaniels comes out and says, Don't worry about it. Actually, no, it might have been Anthony Edwards. He comes out and says, like, yeah, no, don't worry. We'll get the next one. And they go and they get the next one. Because these two teams have been playing against each other for, like, I think 4 years now. It's getting very annoying. I hope this will be the last thing that sends this Nuggets team, that disperses them completely. Because of that duo of Murray and Jokic is annoying. And since Nikola Jokic was able to draw so much gravity due to his play style, you have a guy like Jamal Murray that is consistently open. But here's the thing. We refused to double this whole series. We said, Rudy, go ahead and handle that. Go ahead and handle it. And that's honestly... That's why I like a player like Anthony Edwards, because he has been constantly speaking life into not only Julius Randle, because I remember when Julius first came on our team, and his main thing that he was telling Julius, hey, play your game. We will fit around you. Don't worry about it. And then he goes and tells Jaden McDaniels, hey, actually, no, we don't even tell Jaden McDaniels. We were telling him. Remember when we were playing against the Suns? I remember when we were playing against the Suns. And they're like, hey, they might have Kevin Durant. We got Jaden McDaniels. And guess what? We had Jaden McDaniels. And it's one of those things to have so much trust in your teammates that you know they put a lock in when it needs be, that you're just like, you know what? How could I be mad? They're doing exactly what they need to. And Rudy, I have been mad at you for the whole season. Rudy Gobert is one of those players that the eye test will never be positive when you're watching Rudy Gobert, but you have to go and look at the second numbers. You have to actively, you know what? It's always in the things you do not see when it comes to Rudy Gobert. Because one of the things that I've noticed, or at least when he's on the court, I try and do this thing where I watch everybody else but him. Like, I like to watch role players when they're trying to score on Rudy Gobert. If that's like the limited amount of back cuts you start seeing, the fact that you see that a lot of the times when they do start trying to barrel their way to get themselves layup, they go and they pull up and then they just, hey, let me go and reset this and actually try and run an offense. Because the amount of times that he goes and saves, not just a fast break, because he doesn't really play well in fast breaks, but when he's able to deter the amount of driving lanes that he does, that's where it gets special. And honestly, that's kind of why I like the defensive duo of Rudy and McDaniels, because of it's this inside-outside game that works really well because of when you have a guy like Jaden McDaniels, and honestly the rest of the squad too, and how they're consistently designing their defense to funnel everything towards Rudy Gobert so he plays cleanup duty, has been very interesting to watch, because of you don't see too many teams in the league that are still able to have that said scheme. Next one thing, Naz Reid. Nas, are you okay in the role that you have? That would be my number one question, because it feels like he wants more from his career, and then there's times where he's watching and he's like, I could be a superstar, and I side eye and I'm watching him like, there is definitely hints of a very bad superstar, but still a superstar nonetheless. That's the type of vibe I get from him. It's one of those like, can you be MPJ on a bad team? I can see you get 30. Can you see him get 30? I can see him average a good 26. I can get a clean 25.5. I can see it. Give him 8 more shots a game. He'll produce. Oh, but I like to talk about the one weakness that we do have as a team, the amount of injuries that we dealt with this season. Or it's not even season. It was a week. It was just 1 week of nonsense. So first, Dante DiVincenzo. Keep in mind, I was watching this in Costa Rica. I see this man go tear, I think it was his Achilles. Tears his Achilles. Keep in mind, he's like early, I think he's like 28, early 30s type of, so he's on the older side. That's a problem. This might be his last big run. We play for you. Next, Anthony Edwards goes and hyperextends his knee. He sits. That's not a good sign. Next, Bones Highland. He had to sit for a bit for like left calf soreness. That's a problem. I see Ayo Dosunmu. First of all, Aodosumu, fantastic pick. He goes and drops 43. Next game, he's nowhere to be found. You know why? Left calf soreness. That's a problem. You're overusing it. You know what that means when you have a left calf soreness? Ask Kevin Durant. Ask Tyrese Halliburton. Ask Damian Lillard. Ask Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yeah, no, this is a very scary sign. You very worried for you. I'm glad that you got a chance to take a breather. And then we're going into game 6. And then we were still able to come together as a squad and said, hey, we will force them to at least be as aggressive and as physical as we are. They went and threw Shannon Jr. on that. He goes and says, don't worry, I'll pick up where Ant left off. And he exactly picked up where Ant left off. And you know, I like the fact that we have been saying what we've meant. Bro, Jaden McDaniels talking about they all bad defenders. They can't guard a needle in a haystack. They can't guard a broken leg. They can't guard a weight sign. They can't guard a cone. You know why? Because they're cones. And then he started saying, Jamal Murray, bad defender. Yeah, Jamal Murray, bad defender. Aaron Gordon, bad defender. Cam, bad defender. Bad defender, bad defender, bad defender. He goes and puts up 30 at the end of the game to close them out. They are bad defenders. But back to our weakness. I'm so mad. I'm so mad because of our only problem that we have on this roster is literally the injuries right now. That's literally it. And if we didn't have these injuries, there's no reason we don't go all the way. There's no reason. The only team that I can see even looking us in the eye for real is OKC Thunder. That's the only Todd. That's the only squad. But next, let's talk about the next round. The Spurs versus the Timberwolves. And what do they need to do to be able to clinch this and go to the Western Conference Finals? I'll start this off with Jaden McDaniels. We will need you to replicate that same scoring edge that you had last series. Julius Randle, please, for the love of all loves, we need you to replicate the exact same thing you did all the way back when we played them in, what month was that? Like, I think 3-4 months ago. I need to do exactly what you did over there. Because one of Wemby's main problems is that if he's going against a stockier player that got some shoulders on them, he's kind of, I want to say useless in the one-on-ones type of thing, but I will say he does lose a step when he's forced to play big body because he doesn't know how to control his body that way. And that is a thing we can exploit. Number 2, Castle shot like, I think 40% from 3 this last series, the one that they just won. I still do not believe in that. But I will say, when you have a player that is willing and aggressive, you have a very dangerous player. So we have to come out on all cylinders firing. All the guards, please lock in. And I will say, Anthony Edwards is on the way back. So that's a very good sign. But hey, shouts out to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Great work. Next, OKC advance. So, there's not really too much je ne sais quoi basketball breakdown. OKC was just better than the Suns. Yeah, they just put belt to butt. There wasn't really much that you could use for the breakdown because of, I will say this. Out of all the teams in this playoffs, they're the only team that actually took care of business when business came to their front door. Because of the amount of teams this year, there's legitimately have been Celtics, Pistons, who else didn't really take off the tail? Who else didn't really take care of the business the way they were saying? The Cavs didn't really take care of the business the way they were supposed to. Who else? There was like 3-4 teams this year that was not moving very correctly this year, and now some of them got sent home, but that's a whole nother conversation. I will say, shouts out to the OKC for able to lock in. because it is definitely hard to beat a bad team when you have the upper hand. And the fact that they did all of this without J-Dub being playing anywhere near his peak. I don't even think he even like finished out the series or whatnot. Will they need him later on? That's a conversation we can have later. But I will say, this team is really, I want to say eccentric is the right word. Let's talk about SGA first, and then I'll get to that part. SGA might genuinely be one of the best guards I've gotten a chance to watch in my life. I cannot lie. Because of, it's this efficiency that he's able to pull off when it comes to being able to score on 3 levels. And it's also surrounding around the fact that even though he gets a lot of fouls, I remember when James Harden was at his peak, and he also got a lot of fouls. To be able to score 30, you need 10 free throws minimum. That's basically the best way I could put it, except for if you're like, I don't know, ISO Joe, maybe. Whole other conversation. But I will say this. When I watch him, he's getting these fouls, and yes, they are fouls, but I feel as if he doesn't really need said fouls to be able to get his 28 to 33 points a game, because of he's still able to create so much in the mid-range, and a lot of teams are bailing out to give him that mid-range shot, which I don't think is the best for your team if you're really trying to go all the way, if you're trying to actually like slow him down. Because like, sure, a contested midi that's shooting around 35-40% for a regular dude is a shot that you want to introduce to their diet. But if you have a guy that's legitimately shooting around like 65% to 70% when he's on a hot streak, it's kind of hard to be like, this is what we really need to do. Because even as we start talking about like some of the greatest guards, or at least great guard performances, he might be out hooping Kobe. In all honesty, this man might be out hooping Kobe because of not only actually. I don't know if his team is allowing him to be as really aggressive on the offensive end, but it seems like they're able to generate so much. Actually, that's not really true. Another point, one of the main things that I've noticed, especially for this OKC Thunder team, the roster of aggressive guards is insane. And now that they're starting to throw in the other Jay Williams, they're starting to have a very deep center rotation that a lot of teams do not have. And that's kind of why it's difficult to really find their mismatch and their problem, because of not their and one of the reasons why it's been so difficult to find one of their like problems and weaknesses is because of they have good to great guys at every single position. And I'm trying to find a weakness that you can with the Celtics, where their bigs are not as good, or you can go towards a team like the Raptors that don't have good guards, or there's teams that aren't able to run in the fast break, or there's team that kind of struggles when it comes to being able to guard a big or a little or transition. Or there's some teams that really give up a lot of threes. Not really anymore, but that's you usually get weeded out by the first round. And there's a lot of teams that don't really know how to, There's a lot of teams that don't know how to change their offense or try something new when they're already in a series. A lot of people kind of like, is Ty Lue a good? No, not Ty. Like Doc Rivers, for example, that are willing to die by whatever their offensive strategy was coming into the game, which can get really exploited really quickly. Go look at Joe Mazzulla. So it's very difficult to find their weakness. But let's go to their flopping is getting very egregious, because I'm watching as this team that's winning by 20 is out here flopping around like a dead fish when they know they don't even need to be flopping the way they flopping. I'm watching them and I'm like, bro, first of all, it's okay when SGA does it because he's a superstar. You get the extra superstar whistles, fine, whatever. And it's one thing when it's SGA, but it's another thing when it's Jared McCain that is flopping for calls What are we doing? It's so unnecessary, and you have not earned the right to be BSing this way. But I want to turn back to what's his name, some of the guards too. I do want to give. It's not a shout out to Lou Dort, but I will say Lou Dort is going to be a problem for the team that they play next. So the Lakers, y'all were able to do it. So it's going to be Lakers versus OKC in next round. And honestly, what the OKC Thunder needs to do is just run LeBron off the court. That's it. Just be aggressive, be fast, and just keep running. Because of going to game 7 against the Houston Rockets will definitely eat into the amount of time that he gets to really relax and breathe. But I will say Austin Reeves will be probably locking in sooner than later, but I think he will be very easy to slow down, especially by the 3rd game. Oh, I realized I didn't do I'll do the matchup later. Next, I'm going to go to the Knicks. So the Knicks advance, and the main thing that I took away from that series is they look very touchable. They look like their problems could be exploited with a competent coach. It seems as if their defensive schemes are still the same from last year when they're scared to have a mismatch on a guy like Jalen Brunson. And that's going to be a problem when they're going against a team like the Sixers, where they have multiple guys that will love to scout out multiple of your bad defenders. And I don't know if it's a problem with Cat, if they don't believe in what Cat can do, or it's a thing that they don't have the proper system of defense around Karl Anthony Towns to be able to lock down that paint the way that he should. But honestly, I don't know if it's because of Cat don't even be like paying. I don't know if it's because of like Cat don't really be paying attention the way that he should be, especially on the defensive end, because of there's so many like lapses in judgments that you look at him and be like, bro, you've been in the league for like more than a decade at this point, and you're still making these type of fouls that are consistent to bad offensive transitions. And that will be a problem when you're going against a team that will need every single opportunity to be taking y'all off the court, especially when you have a guy like Mitchell Robinson is your main backup, main starter, main like defensive anchor. You don't want a negative on your defense because your offense is very wishy-washy. But I will say this, Mikal Bridges, you need to lock in. But I do see glimpses of you being able to like settle into the space that you need, because if he plays this very, I wouldn't call it a specific role, but I'll say the role player that looks, nope, let me rewind. Is Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges. They play this space as a role player where any given moment they can get pushed into this star category without them recognizing that that's what's being asked of them. And I feel like that could be very problematic when you do go and call for them to start getting their offensive going, because of that's the reason why the Atlanta Hawks stood as long as they did in the first place, was because of a guy like Mikal Bridges was very slow to really start getting his offensive going. And that's why they were leaning on so heavy with a guy like OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby, you are very swole African. That's my number one takeaway from OG Anunoby. I have not seen a guy with those type of shoulders in a long time. And I will say this. Y'all are really lucky that it was the Atlanta Hawks that y'all saw in the first round. Because if it was the Raptors, belt to the behind, I'm not gonna hold you. The Raptors would have put belt on y'all. Oh my god. Oh wow. So as I'm watching Atlanta, they had so many offensive and honestly defensive problems too, because of their offense reminded me of the Atlanta Hawks Actually, no. Okay, I'll say it reminded me of the Atlanta Hawks back when they had 4 All-Stars on their squad, but like in reverse because of their facilitation was so lacking, and they put so much emphasis on guys that are honestly 6 men, as well as their young guard that's supposed to be a point guard, but he's actually a small forward, and they're trying to force him to be a facilitating wing like a LeBron James, a Paul George, a Kawhi Leonard. But there's definitely levels to that, and you don't know if I'm talking about Jalen Johnson or Dyson Daniels, and that's a problem too. Dyson, please lock in. Why did you needed to lock in? I was rooting for you all year. I was rooting for Dyson Daniels to just lock in because I saw all the parts that could have been something, but just nothing. But that's just how it is. Jalen Brunson, are you the best guard in the league? Are you? No, let me not say the league. Are you the best guard in the East? Honestly, maybe. I think so. I think Jalen Brunson is the best guard in the East. Yeah, I do. I'm getting very. It's really hard for me to not give him that title out East, especially with his offensive load, and even as he's a terrible defensor, as he's a terrible defensive guard, and you have to consistently not only hide him, but create a roster around him to be able to keep his defense afloat. His offensive pull is ridiculous because even at 5'11", stop telling me he's 6'2", even at 5'11", he is still slaying giants. He's still hitting a bunch of threes. He's still having the offense surround him in a way where everybody is able to do less because he does so much. Is it a Wilt Chamberlain problem when you have a guy that's carrying such a huge load that is holding some people back? Maybe. I cannot say that's for certain, but I will say for the next round, what they will need to do, before I even get to the next round, 140 to 89, belt to butt. And that's my problem. And that's the problem that I have with this squad. Because you look for 1 second and they just blow a team out. You look for what? You just close your eyes and look for a second. And guess what? They figure everything out. OG Anunoby's hitting threes. Mikal Bridges is hitting threes. Josh Hart is getting to the lane. Karl Anthony Towns is being a roamer for some reason, and he's still hitting threes, and he's still being the biggest player on the court, and he's still being so imposing that you're forced to play your 5, and your 5 is objectively too slow for a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, and everything is just cooking in a way that nobody can stop them. But I will say, if you're going to go into Sixers, you better pray Embiid's knees are terrible. Yeah, because this momentum that they're coming in with this series, yeah, good luck. Because the Sixers are literally built exactly like the New York Knicks, but they feel a little bit better. That's just my vibe. That's just the vibe that I'm coming out from it. But what they will need to do is implement Karl Anthony Towns. If he's not your guy, you are losing by 15 every single game. The Lakers advance. Bron, you almost did it. You almost sold my GOAT case, and I was going to be so mad. You almost made me cry. You almost blew that 3-0 lead. Not 3-1, 3-0. There was going to be some vicious conversations that I was going to have tomorrow morning that I did not want to have, so thank you for doing what you needed to do. Bro, you were playing like an all-star. How are you 41? I feel like we end up saying this once an hour. I find myself thinking to myself, wow, he's really 41 years old and he's still doing this. He is 20. He is wow. A legitimate middle-aged man is on the court playing against youngins and sending them to school. I'm talking to my girl. I was talking to my girl. She looked at him and said, "Wow, he's old." I see the wrinkles in gray, and I'm like, "Yeah, he's been playing. He's played against what is the stat? 60 to 70% of the 60 to 70% of every NBA player that has ever existed played against LeBron James." That is insane to me. That is just a ridiculous stat line. But let's get to the game. Let's get back to the game. Braun and Smarts, you are playing the type of old man basketball that I can only aspire to be playing at. And it just reminds me that there's so much more to basketball than just the offensive X's and O's, especially when it comes to the just box score watching, because a lot of things that you see in the box score will never give you the entire picture if you did not watch the game. And some of the defensive strategies, for example, there was a jump ball between him and Alperen Şengün where they throw it up and he waits for Alperen Şengün to hit it, and then he runs and then gets the ball and they get the possession to get a score, get a bucket real quick. But there's this constant amount of times when you show off that Marcus Smart was a defensive player of the year, even at, again, another player that is 5'11". Stop telling me they're 6'2", 6'3". And they're able to do so much with so little athleticism that they have left, that they're able to not just pace themselves, but they're using the exact amount of energy that is needed for the game to win. And I know going into game 6, a lot of Rockets fans were telling me, "Oh, well, it really should be 3-2 our way," because of after game, I think game 3 was the game that they blew, like, I think a 17-point lead. There was another game where Kevin Durant, that was a bad loss. But beyond the point, there's a couple games that could have went either or, is basically my main point. And I would like to say, especially when it comes to the Rockets, they were not a playoff team, period. And it makes me so frustrated because going into the season, I had such high hopes for them. And even halfway through the season, there was so much to look forward to. And then you start recognizing that, number one, they really needed Steven Adams. Number two, they needed Steven Adams and Fred VanVleet. 2, they needed the initiating. They need so much more initiating on that roster. 3, Amen Thompson and actually no, let me just stick with Amen Thompson. Amen Thompson will need to learn how to at least move without the ball, because the way that this team is set up with literally zero facilitation, minimal shooting, even though they had a player that was shooting 50% on their roster, and it just was fool's gold. Every single player. You go look at Alperen Şengün, and it's like the talks of being Baby Jokic has been spilling into his ear a little bit too much. And you're like, bro, we get it. You're big. You like to pass. But can you make a layup? Do you have any post moves? Can you please get a block? But I will say, as the series went on, you start to watch as Alperen Şengün really starts to lock down the defensive end, because of when you get tried constantly, you get a lot of opportunities to show off that you can actually hoop. And I like the fact that he was able to at least stick with the program, even though this team was absolutely garbanzo beans. And Kevin Durant's, the burners, was ridiculous. The fact that your teammates, the vibe would switch anytime that Kevin Durant would step on that court, and that just upset my soul. Anytime you see Kevin Durant, it's like, ugh, bro, we know what you did. That's weird. You look at Amen Thompson, and he's like visibly like, ugh, this guy. Jabari Parker deserves so much better. Why did you call him a nincompoop? You called him the dummiest of all dummies. And you know what? The crazy part about all that burner talk, you weren't even wrong, for real. You weren't too off. You are not too off. You are not too off. And it makes me upset because there was so much that could have been in this team, but not just fell short, but it just highlighted the lack of leadership in Kevin Durant. It highlighted that the young guys needed to grow up, and it highlighted that Ime Udoka might just be a terrible coach. He might be riding the coattails of that Boston Celtics run for a little bit too long, in my opinion. But what the Rockets need to lock in on for this next series against, who are they playing? The OKC. Pray that Luka locks in. I don't know. Hope Luka's body is okay. That's the number one thing, because this team, yeah, they're gonna pick y'all apart. Oh, shout out DeAndre Ayton. You hooped. DeAndre Ayton, you hooped. Luke Kennard, you hooped that one game. LeBron, you are fantastic. You are absolutely fantastic. Next. 1, 2, 3, 4. Spurs. The Spurs advance. Number 1, Wemby, you're my everything. I love you. Wemby, I love you. You was hooping it away. Man. The first game, I think he broke the rookie record for first playoff games or something like that with like 30-some points. Defense was fantastic. You could feel that his impact on the defensive end was not just spectacular, but just like game warping, because it kind of has the same initial defensive gravity like a guy like Rudy Gobert had in his peak prime, DPOY Rudy Gobert, where you have to stop everything because you're worried that he's going to grab that ball and throw it into the stands. Oh, I forgot. He's going to pass it to himself and then take off and get a fast break, do a spin move, and then dunk the ball. Ridiculous. Shooting. Okay, wait. First of all. I don't like that they're running him the way they are. I don't like it. It feels like cheating. I have never seen a 7-footer get hit with a pin down and get it from the corner, fade, hit a 3, and the next play, go dribble the ball down, in and out, spin move again, and then dunk the ball backwards. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Wemby can actually shoot, and that's fucking the game up completely. Like, he's actually one of their spacers on the team, and that's like weird to like visualize it. Next, it feels like this team isn't running offense through Wemby. He's just happened to be integrated into the defense. Like, you don't have to actively try and force him to get the ball because of he's honestly always open. And I like the fact that he's still a great lob threat. He's the lob threat where you're able to just know that he's up there like somewhere. So that's going to be a problem when Minnesota faces off again, but that's a whole nother conversation. We'll get there. Next, this team, the Spurs, feels like cheating. Let me explain. They have so much legacy on the San Antonio Spurs where a lot of their young guys are able to not just ask for advice, but it seems like this young roster is actively clamoring from advice from the old heads, the Hall of Famers in their directory, and that's insane to me. Like, the first game when Tim Duncan and David Robinson was just like chilling there is like, well, you know who you know who they have that's training them. You saw Wemby's training arc with all these random Hall of Famers and monks and superstars, and then you go to the roster and you watch that there's a lot of players on this team that I feel like the best way to say it has like the basketball bug, where the basketball IQ is just ingrained inside the way that they play, and it shapes the way that they look at the game of basketball, where it's one, reducing on like selfishness, and two, it's forcing everyone to get in where they fit in. Number one, Dylan Harper. he has the Manu Ginobili gene, and I cannot stress that enough. It feels as if he knows that he could average 22, 20 points right now as we speak as a rookie. But he says, okay, you want to use me in spurts? Fine. When Wemby goes down, you want to use me more? Fine. You want to use me as just a spacing shooter? Fine. If you want to use me as a guy that's setting up and facilitating for Champagne, as well as actually getting Cornet like really locked in, fine, I will do all that. Whatever you need, he will be there. And that is really important when you are in the playoffs, because a lot of times there is a lot of equity that is needed. There's a lot of playoff equity that is needed when you're retrospectively looking at a team to see if they're able to go far, because of as the playoffs goes on, there's a lot of nipping of the fat that is on the roster, because of you cannot find yourself making consistent mistakes. It's one thing if you have one guy that is just like problematic on, let's say, the defensive end, or they sometimes just like miss on rotations, but it's another thing where the other team will naturally just find that player and they will consistently run plays to force that player to be a part of systems where they're consistently getting taken out of place. They're always getting abused. And now everybody else on the team has to make up for that one player. But with this Spurs roster, it seems as if every guy they play, they know what they're doing. Shouts out to the sixth man of the year, Keldon Johnson. And that's going to be a thing that they need to really play upon. Like, for example, Stephon Castle, he is a bad shooter in my opinion. Like, it's really hard to look at him and be like, all right, I could see you being on the positive end when it comes to spacing. But I will say, due to his ability to not so much be optimistic in his game, but he doesn't hesitate when the ball comes towards him, and he knows that he needs to be producing immediately. And that's what's so interesting when you watch, as he's so willing to take the team on his back, especially when Wemby got that concussion. Let me talk about that concussion real quick. That concussion scared me. I'm not gonna lie to you, because I looked at him first. I was watching it at work, and me and my guy, we were looking at it like, he looks like he's faking it. They go in their slow-mo. It looks like his head was about to explode once it bounced on that floor. When it bounced on that floor, I was very scared, because of, guess what? That is a long way down. And that's what I will say. Their main concern is going to be Wemby's health, because of, I feel like that's going to be the one thing that might really start rearing his ugly head, because of the elephant in the room is he's 7'6", and when you're that tall, your body don't really hold up the best, especially after years of playoff runs. But that's a whole nother conversation. But the MN versus Spurs, the Timberwolves versus Spurs, what do the Spurs need to do to succeed? Honestly, just play the game. Play your game and consistently just, actually, that's not the right word. That's not the right word I'm looking for. Match their aggressiveness. I'll say matching their aggressiveness is going to be the main thing, because of, they have a lot of the same archetypes on these two teams, but the Timberwolves are a lot older, and they seem like they're just naturally far more aggressive than majority of the teams in the league. And they invite contact, they invite the aggressiveness, they invite all the extraness that comes from playing defense. So that's going to be another one thing that y'all will need to lock in on. Sixers. All right, let me talk about the four. Actually, come back from 3-1 lead. Beautiful. I am so glad this team came back from that 3-1 lead. And I'm so glad that it was Embiid that sent those Boston Celtics home. The Celtics are bad people. It's an evil franchise. They're an evil franchise. I'm watching the Celtics, bro. And honestly, I hate analytical basketball, because we all know their number one problem is they just refuse to change their way. They're going to live by the three. They're going to die by the three. The reason why they're able to like destroy teams is because that 3-point ball, it is consistently just too much. It's an avalanche. And then they have a couple of guys that are able to like score in the half court. So it's a double whammy. But I'm so glad that their devil magic finally took a rest. It just breathe. Does it feel poetic that it was Embiid that finally sent them home? Yes. I'm very glad that Embiid is finally getting a chance to have that healthy I'm glad that Embiid is able to have that healthy playoff season because I have not seen him where his body is not deteriorating right on the television. And it's really scary for me when you look forward in like 10 years when he's like done playing the game of basketball and he has to just like live with the choices and decisions that he's made from his whole career, where I literally watched as this man is blind in his left eye. I watched as he hooped where he was literally, I watched as Embiid played with his knee like barely hanging on. I watched as he was blind. I was watching as he was dizzy. He could not see. And he still said, no, I will put my body and life on the line to hoop for the Sixers. You know why? Because they my twins for real. I love them. And now that we're able to actually see him have a good playoff run. And guess what? I love that he reminded the world that he's still I love that he reminded the world when he's healthy, he's a top 3 player objectively. Top five if you really want to push it. But a healthy Embiid is better than Luka in my opinion, but that's a whole other conversation. But the dominance. And honestly, I love that it was against the Celtics because of their main problem is they refuse to address their center problem. And now that they've met their match because they had a whole bunch of Tatum was out and they had a whole bunch of trades and they did a whole bunch to get themselves all the way to this point. And guess what? The Sixers locked in and sent them home in generational fashion. VJ Edgecombe, Maxey, Embiid, PJ. Wait, PJ? Not P, PJ. PG. Thank you. Oh my God. Those 4 horsemen of whoopings was really hooping. And you know what? I'm going to add Kelly Oubre because I love Kelly Oubre. Paul George turning back the hands of time. Bro, he was hooping like it was 2017, 2019. He was tweet cross. And it's crazy because of Paul George is one of those few players where he started this era of wings being just like obscenely talented. Like there was a point in the 2010s when every team needed a 3 that was able to dribble, shoot from all 3 parts. They were able to create offense. They were able to facilitate. They were just a scoring. They turned into a guard for a little bit. They had more handles than their point guard. They started being able to facilitate. And watching Paul George every single play be like, Derek White, you're a DPOY candidate? Come and see me. Jaylen Brown, come and see me. Pressured, come and see me. Your bigs, come and see me. Everybody needs to see. Everyone needs to guard me twice. I want to guard everybody 2 times today at least. So everyone just come on, run with me. And that is fire. I love that right there. That I can take to my bank. Next. Maxey, you have a chance to do something special. Y'all already beat the best team out east. You can do it. Take it all the way. Go and hoop. Because the more that I watch, they kind of have like the Timberwolves problem where their only mishap is the fact that their guys are injured. No, not even guys. Just a guy is injured. And honestly, I'm not even going to hold you. You might not even need him for the Knicks. So all y'all need to, honestly, VJ Edgecombe, go and guard DJ Edgecombe, go and guard Brunson 94 feet the whole game, 1v1, see who dies first. That's all you need. Keita? Who's the big that I'm thinking of on the Sixers? Drummond? Yeah, on the point. Ooh, I'm getting tired. Grimes. Go and out OG Anunoby. Go do that to him. That's definitely a must. I like this. This roster is nice. I like how they're set up, because if they do the same thing where they're like, yeah, we got a bunch of wings, we got a bunch of guards, but as long as big fella going, there's nobody in the league that can see us in the eye. And that's a funny thing that I found out like throughout this whole season. This East has been so weird because a lot of these teams are actually a lot better than they seem, than their record would tell you. So you see a lot of these like upper seeds getting like just punched in the mouth this whole series, like every first round, the higher seed is out here just getting punched in the mouth out East, and that is fantastic. Like the Knicks almost lost, the Pistons almost lost, the Celtics did lose, and the Cavs were supposed to lose, but they definitely used their experience for the greater good. But that's what they need to beat the Knicks. Honestly, exploiting Brunson. That might be number one. Exploit Brunson. And honestly, let Maxey outplay Brunson. That's honestly what I would say. Just put those two 1v1 and just hope for the best. Yeah. Because Maxey, he's also in the running for the best guard out East. So, Pistons. Okay. They came back from a 3-1 lead, and honestly, they really got punched in the mouth very viciously. But I will say this. This team, they needed this type of series right off the gate because of, like I was saying earlier, when it comes to matchups, the Magic was the worst team for this team to go against, because of throughout the whole regular season, the Pistons have been so physical and egregiously strong with every team that they, even when Cade Cunningham went down with that collapsed, I think punctured lung or something, a collapsed lung, some crazy thing like that, they were still able to keep the game afloat because they had enough guys that were like, you know what, we're all hard-nosed defenders and we will make them work for every single bucket they're going to get against us at least. And that type of play style works really well when you're playing against teams that don't know how to reciprocate that type of energy that you're giving, but it tends to fall flat on his face when you're playing against a team that honestly needs that type of physicality for them to even work on their own end. And that's what the Magic were, because of their offense matched the Magic's and the Pistons offense are honestly one and the same when it comes to the minimal amount of creation, the fact that they're very clogged up with minimal amount of shooters, from the way that they're not able to really get sets running because they have 2 to 3 non-shooters on both sides of the ball at a given time. Their superstar kind of turn into a little bit shot chucky when things don't really start going their way. And it's one thing when your guard does that, but since the opposing team had Paolo Banchero, you can kind of take advantage of his shot chucking. Well, let me not even call it shot chucking, but his shot selections, because of it kind of just boiled down to, I'm physically bigger than everybody else on the floor. And if you're able to like consistently force him into jump shots instead of trying to use his size to actually get to the rim and get layups, you could start to slow him down. And that's honestly what the Pistons did to get back into this game in the first place. For the first 4 games, the Magic were able to capitalize so much on rushing the Pistons, on actively getting loose balls, on actively forcing what is his name, Jenkins, to be the lead initiator on the offensive end. And as long as the ball is not on Cade Cunningham's hand, they don't really pass the ball that well. And there's another thing the Magic were doing where they were consistently making Jalen Duren's life just hell because they were throwing 3-4 real they were throwing 3 or 4 real big players, real 6'11" and up players on Jalen Duren at all times of the game. It didn't matter. There's always 2 on the court that were always fronting and being very strong and aggressive with him. So they systematically removed him from playing. And this was really important for the Pistons to see early on because they're seeing the Cavaliers next round where they're able to replicate that same 2 big lineup, even though they're both more finesse bigs than real power bigs like the Magic had. But I will say the weakness of their guards not being like that, the Pistons, is really not just detrimental for the rest of their squad because their facilitation kind of turns into Tobias Harris hero ball and Cade Cunningham hero ball, and that doesn't seem to elicit any faith from my side of the court. And Cade Cunningham was really able to show that he was a better player than Paolo Banchero this series specifically. But honestly, I won't even say that. I feel like because their positions are so different, and since Cade is a 1 and Paolo is a 4 or 5, that really highlights that it's difficult for Paolo to be able to get good shots when there's no guards on their team that's really able to come along with him, right? And on the opposite side, you have Cade that knows he's going to get the ball, that has the ball 100% of the time, and knows that as long as we can create pseudo space, I can get a driving lane because of he was kind of forced into taking a lot of shots that I personally don't really vibe too much with, but that can be ironed out of the game if you're able to get Asar Thompson to be roaming and still being able to be in the dunker spot. It's going to be really hard to play Asar and Duren at the same time. That's the thing that the coach will have to like figure out. But I will say, Cade, you hoop like crazy. You was hooping ridiculously. But the Cavs versus Pistons, what the Pistons needs to do, honestly, stay as aggressive because of the Cavs' main problem is the fact that they do not like it when you are really aggressive because of their 2 guards. They get so many points off of that free throw line. And I want to say that they're like flop artists. That's too aggressive of the word. But I'll say they are definitely reliant on being able to get sent to the free throw line, especially when you have 2 potentially 25 to 30 point per game scorers on your roster. You could definitely slow them down. And to switch it over to the Cavs, 7-game series as well. There's a lot of 7-game series. It was insane. The Harden D Mitch combo, they're very lucky that they traded for Harden in the first place because of he definitely was necessary when it came to the facilitation and still being able to be an offensive threat on the ball. The Cavs also struggled with trying to stay aggressive on their side of the court, on their offensive side of the court, because of it kind of felt like once they got hit, they didn't really want to hit back. And that's not really a good strategy to have, especially in the playoffs when they are more prone to swallow their whistle. But I will say what the Cavs need to do for this matchup, they really just need to take the play out of the Magic book and run it because they do have the same personnel to be able to really start slowing them down. Is it going to be hard to really replicate it when you don't have as many like 7-footers as the Magic? Yes, but I will say you have the better guards, and that will be able to bully what's the word? Bowie out the offensive disparities that the Magic had compared to the Cavaliers. Because Cavaliers, they were able to generate offense, especially with the 2 guards. But their main problem was the shots that they were getting were just really, really hard. And for the Pistons, honestly, I would just say attack Donovan Mitchell. That might be the main one. Attack Donovan Mitchell and get out in transit. I don't know. Honestly, that one's going to be a toss-up. I don't know who I think is going to win at the end of the day. But, yeah. Thanks for watching. These are all the round 1 games of the NBA playoffs, and we out.